Welcome to the Balanced Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Matt Southam. Here, we delve into candid conversations with entrepreneurs, exploring both their business journey and their secrets to maintaining mental well-being. As we navigate the balance of ambition and inner peace, I hope you find insights, inspiration, and invaluable takeaways in every episode. Thank you for joining us. Hi, John. Welcome to the show today. Before we kick off talking about marketing and your business and things like that, I want to talk about you. What do I need to understand about your background and your journey?
Oh, hi, Matt. Thanks very much for having us. Background and journey. God, there's a lot in that set. That's a loaded sentence, right? How do you spend an hour talking about everything someone's done for? And let's just say this is going to be boring if we do that, so we're not going to do that.
No.
Just because the audience, they'll just die off at this point. But I guess the highlights are, I think I started my career in retail, and a bit like hospitality. I think if you can survive retail, you're pretty much set. And for any retailers that are listening or anyone working out there right now, much love. It's not an easy job, guys. So fair play. I really enjoyed that. So I was a very young store manager, and I did it for various different organizations and whatnot. And eventually I kind of woke up one morning and said, I could do this myself. So I did. And I built a little mini empire of little bits and bobs and whatnot, and loved doing that. And that was before everything went online. So, well, actually, that's not true. It was in the cusp of it. So it was kind of when like eBay power sellers was still a thing, and that was all happening, right? So we started to get into this kind of, we're probably the first company, one of the first companies, if you like, to go from retail stock and shelves into e-commerce. But I kind of learned all that on the fly. And then I woke up a few years later and I sold that business. And I didn't really know what to do. So I then got into the online dating sphere. And to this day, we still own some online dating sites within the organization, which is interesting. And during that time, I did an awful lot of marketing, an awful lot of SEO, and an awful lot of social. And we got quite good at it. We got quite good at it. And I mean, there were some glaringly bad mistakes and choices, let me tell you. But in fact, there's one that we can talk. If we want to do the question, what's the worst thing you've ever learned in marketing? I'll definitely answer that.
We'll do that.
But so kind of we got into social and we started doing it really, really well. And eventually I kind of woke up and went, I want an agency. And for anyone who's ever woken up in the morning and gone, I want a digital agency, just stop there, go back to bed, make a coffee, forget it. It was a bad idea. But there's once you get into the agency bug, it's agency life, right? It's a whole thing. It's just a whole thing. And so Delivered Socials, it's been around for 10 years, but realistically, in truth, it's been operating for about 7. I love it. The agency is brilliant. I think it's great fun. But yeah, that's a little bit about the background.
Okay, I mean, let's dive into some of the things that you've learned then, because actually, I love SEO and I understand, but you do learn the real world when actually doing it, because it's very easy, and I've seen it before, and you've probably seen it. Clients have produced a report and come to you, and it's like, yeah, that's going to make 0.01% of a difference. But actually, let's do this because we know that works, and you know it through experience.
Yeah, SEO. So SEO is something I really, really love. I'm passionate about, and it's really hard because it is technical, right? So everyone sits there and it's like, it's really boring. It's really this. It's really that. But actually, the real world application is a lot easier than people think it is. Actually, if you write good content, if you get it ranked correctly, if you do the right bits to your website, more often than not, you don't have to worry about the 0.110%, or you really don't need to worry about it. Where SEO came really true for us was during the pandemic. So we, probably before the pandemic, we would have sat there and said, we're really good with SEO. Yeah, we sell SEO. Yeah, whatever. Utter tosh. Like, compared to what we know now, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and give myself a slap, because it just wasn't. We didn't have a clue. Pandemic hit, and like many businesses, everyone's sitting there, with their existential crisis of what was going to happen and all of that jazz. And we definitely went through a few waves of that. But one of the things we had at the time was we had a team of videographers full time, and we were left with this really awkward decision of, okay, well, what do we do? Do we keep them because they can't go and film, they can't go and do anything? Or do we repurpose them, essentially? We repurposed them. We didn't lose anyone, thankfully. And we must have 12x'd our SEO during our traffic during the pandemic just by trying different things. So, that time machine comment of going back and slapping the idiot who thought he could do SEO before we had our backs to the wall to really have to go, okay, this is the only way we're going to get business. What do we do? It really helped us learn. And that 12x argument, and it is about 12x actually when I look at it, that now has meant that when we go out to clients, we know those formulas that work really well for certain things. Don't get me wrong. If you are trying to rank number one for the word toothpaste, forget it, right? And anyone who's listening who thinks their business is going to rank for that, stop now, go away. But there are still clever ways of getting around these things. There are clever things you can still do to identify with it. Toothpaste for bald people. I Google that all the time, guys, and I can guarantee we can get you to position one for that. And I think that's really important with SEO I think SEO has been, I think it's been taught really badly in the past. I think that those audit reports, oh my God, when a client emails you one and says, I've got this done, and you just sit there and think, great, I've just been to the toilet this morning. Which one was more valuable? Yeah. But they do, unfortunately, it's a lead gen thing. So I don't blame people who generate them. But the clients don't know what half of it means. And actually, if they had 4 things that they could just do that would make a difference, it would probably mean more to the average business than one of those 40-page reports.
Yeah, because quite often those reports are geared towards, whether it's the technical side of Google or things like that, rather than actually it's the person who's searching that you want to be able to present your information to, present your content to. And actually getting that part right is the first stage. I'm not saying you shouldn't do the technical stuff, but there's no point doing that if you're not even talking about what, in your content of what someone's actually searching for.
And actually, just this podcast is a really good example of this, because whereas a podcast, people don't think of that tied to SEO. If we have a page about this podcast, with a video on it, it helps the SEO, blah, blah, blah. SEO is no longer just words on a page. It just isn't. No. You have to have the social posts. You have to have a video bit of contest. There's so many ways of making it good. What I would say about those reports and the technical aspect is I think that they're designed to scare people and go, I can't possibly do this. I need to pay the company that gave me this report money to do it. And I get the tactic. I understand it, but yes, page speed is important. Improving it by 0.00001, it doesn't matter to anyone. No one cares. And it's always going to adapt. So what I learned 2 years ago, like when I get into the SEO team now at work, like so many things have changed even in that time from when we 12x'd. So I do have to sit there and go with SEO. The scare tactics should stop, in my opinion, in the market. And I think people need to be honest about, SEO retainers and kind of start being, look, you can do it. You can rank, you can do things, but there's a world of other things you need to do to make this happen. And if you're not going to do that, it's not going to work.
No, I mean, I attend Brighton SEO quite regularly. And one thing I find always very interesting is hearing basically lots of different people's opinions. And they've done something and it worked for them, but then someone else did something else and it worked for them. And it is just combining lots of stuff. It's like there's no one way to go to the gym and get fit. There's so many different exercises. There's so many different things. And it does depend what you're training for. But equally, if you've only got an hour, well, you're not going to do every single exercise. But which ones do you want to do for you?
Firstly, shout out to Brighton SEO because it's taking place shortly. And
it is.
One of my friends is speaking. So go and have fun. It's always a brilliant conference. They do. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it is you get all these professionals in a room, and actually adults in the room, they're all looking at each other going, well, we're really good at SEO. And then you look at it and go, oh, I didn't think of that. So that opinion thing really does matter because Google's not going to tell us how to rank to one. And if I'm honest about it, I'm not 100% sure they know anymore. Actually, I think it's so many magnitudes of things that could change it on a daily basis. That I think it really, really matters. You're right. There are things that work for some sites, things that work for others. There's things that work for sectors that don't necessarily work for other sectors. There are sectors out there that it is still really easy to improve your SEO. There's other sectors out there that you're going to spend tens of thousands of pounds and get nowhere. And well, maybe not get nowhere, but you're not going to get the results maybe you started with that budget in mind.
Yeah, that you wanted for the amount that you've spent to get there. You've made a difference, but actually, I guess it goes back to the whole marketing. What do people actually want? Well, actually, they don't want SEO. They want more sales, and that's a tactic to, be found for people searching for the product or service that you sell, and then hopefully convert you through from a landing page and so on and so on. Actually, they don't want the activity. They still just want the sale. So while you might have improved the SEO slightly, and I guess it's tricky for agencies. We can say, look, we've done what you've asked us to do. We've improved your SEO. You have moved up the ranking. But if someone hasn't actually seen any more business,
fails. Yeah,
it has failed.
And that's a whole different conversation. So one of the things we chose to do, actually it was just before the pandemic, was we came up with packages that basically did everything. Now, it wouldn't necessarily do everything really well, but it would do a touch point on every single subject. So you'd go into a business and you would go, are you sending a newsletter? No, tick. Are you doing social? No, tick. Are you doing SEO? No, tick. And you had all these things, and people would be like, well, but I don't want to do that and do that. And you sit there and you say, but if you don't do that, the touch point here, and here falls down. So ultimately, just be quiet and let's do it, because otherwise you will not see that results. And I think it's really important to say that SEO, this is another tricky one. If you get a website built somewhere and you go somewhere else to get it SEO'd, that is always a conflict, because ultimately the SEO can get better, and the SEO should be at the front of a design. But if there are no call to actions, if it hasn't been thought about what happens when you get to that page, if you've not got something dynamic to get someone hooked in or something, then you can be position one till the cows come home, but ultimately no one's going to take any action or do anything. And I really think that's going to be a big thing for the next few years, because those actions, they're harder and harder to do now to get people to convert, because people are savvy. And my inner voice is wanting to say, produce great content, the rest will come. And I do believe that. But I still think there's a place for, tactical call to actions or clever ways of doing it. A great article on our website has nothing to do with our business whatsoever. And it's ways to celebrate your company birthday. And we probably get, 1,000 hits a month for this one article. Now, that's great, but it's never done anything for us. So for a year, we actually put a call to action on it that said, drop us a date for your company birthday and we'll send you a company birthday card. Just for the idea of someone might go, oh, that'd be quite cool. Not one person ever filled in the form to get a free birthday card for their company. Now, either they're not proud of their companies or we just completely missed the mark. But that's what I mean by kind of creative call to actions. You've got to come up with something a bit different now that actually gets people to, engage with the content.
Yeah, and I guess actually, I'm going to talk about TikTok because I saw the news article today that actually in the US it has gone to, been voted through that they're going to be told you need to sell it or it's going to be banned. But I've seen a lot that TikTok is actually that very early funnel now for people getting information. Certainly youngsters, people like video content. And actually, when we talk about SEO, it's almost made me giggle that actually traditionally long form content was the way to go. So if I wanted a recipe for a lasagna or whatever, I'd have to read War and Peace, like 1,500 words because that's what people wrote.
But
to
now
get it
all
ranked.
you need is an air fryer from TikTok Shop.
Yeah, and suddenly I've got a 60-second video and I know how to do it. And actually that's much more engaging. So where people are in that sort of buying circle has changed. So therefore, all of the SEO you're doing, all of the tactics, all the content you're producing needs to reach different people at different times.
Yeah. And I think this comes back to what I was saying about you can have a blog page, but with that blog page, have an embedded TikTok about that blog, have an embedded YouTube about that blog, so try and cover all those base points as you go. TikTok's obviously hugely interesting. And I imagine for any agency that you speak to, this kind of, again, it's probably like the time machine slap moment. It's like, oh yeah, we do TikTok. It's great. I mean, we do TikTok. We try hard. Now, there are some agencies that have advantages. So, music industry, they've got artists producing copy that obviously gets tagged, that gets used. Brilliant. I've got a scaffolding company. What do? Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
how many time lapses do you want of scaffolding going do 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 do? I mean, I might be able to get the Super Mario tune at best, and that's if they wanted to do it, and they
Yeah.
don't because of the cost of what it's involved for them. And I think
Yeah.
so. TikTok's been brilliant, and I think it's great for businesses that have their crap together, right? That can pull it together. But we it's expensive for a small business or a medium-sized business to do. Now, everyone sits there and says, no, it's not. They've just got to pick up their phone and go for it. And it's like, well, no, they don't. They have to edit it. They have to get captions. They have to do this. They don't know. Some of these people have never, posted to Instagram, let alone TikTok. And we're coming at them with this new viral tool of what they've got to do. There is no denying it. And in fact, we've made a point this year. We will not take on social clients unless you engage in video content as well, because the static grid squares, they work to a point, but not overly anymore. People really want to get to know those business owners. And those 60 seconds, how to do your lasagna, actually would be way more interesting with a client talking about scaffolding and, hi, my name is, I own a scaffolding company. Let me show you the 3 things that always go wrong when we turn up to site. Doesn't matter if you care about scaffolding. You now want to know what's ruined that bloke's day. So you've engaged in that content.
Yeah, completely. I mean, actually, I had a client come to me and they'd seen some stats about, and it was TikTok, and they was like, should we be on TikTok? And I was like, well, yes, probably. But do you have the capability to, dedicate more time in-house? Because I can provide strategy. I can provide all of those bits, even the captioning. But you are going to have to do some work yourself, because otherwise it's very impersonal and that doesn't work.
Yeah, so we've had real challenges with that. And I think any agency that says otherwise is telling a little porky, if I'm honest. We actually now send our staff out to go and do the content shoots. Because if we waited for the content to come to us, it just would be tumbleweed, right? It wouldn't happen. Yeah. So there's just no point pretending that exists and that's going to work. In fact, we've got 3 shoots today with people going out, and so what we try and do is get a day content video with them, and then that'll last us a couple of months if we're clever. But what that doesn't do, and I think this is a problem specifically with TikTok, it doesn't do reactive content. And that's a whole different ball game now, because if you really want your accounts to grow, you've got to be reactive to the trends. And then you get into the argument with clients of, well, I don't want people dancing around the office for nothing. But do you want 100,000 followers? Yes, I do. Guess what? We've got to engage in a bit of a giggle then. We've got to do something fun. And that's hard because actually they've got no motivation. They've got little motivation to do it when they're on their own, putting up that scaffolding, for example, on a cold morning. But some of it's routine, right? So if we look at the scaffolding thing, and just a point where you say, you've got to do the hard work yourself. I mean, we try and make them feel guilty. So we send them a tripod in the post when they join us and say, you'll be needing this. And then you kind of get this random phone call going, what's this for? And it's like, you'll find out. And just and put the phone down and be, they've got to do it because it won't work otherwise.
No. I mean, are you seeing, what's your take on personal brands and business brands and things like that? Because that is a whole different conversation, but certainly as, agency owner or business owner, actually your personal brand can quite often be tied to it and that really benefit the business.
There's 2 parts to that. And I have to be honest and say that I've let the boat down on this a little bit. Personal brand wins. Get your company brand in order, get it looking good, get it working right, all of that jazz, and the company will be fine. If you want the company to grow, sort your personal brand out. It's that simple, because people buy from people. We always know that. That's it. That's my take. So we've got myself. I'm the founder and the owner of the business, but we also have a chief operating officer. And he made a commitment last year to do 1 video a day on every network, and it's worked. It's that simple. Yeah. I made the same commitment, didn't do it, and it hasn't worked because I've not kept up the consistency. Now, he would be sat here right now reminding me of, well, you had this, and that's cool, that's fine, plenty of excuses, all of that jazz, but it still didn't get done. So this year, I've still got the same goal to build that video content, to build that audience relationship. It is hard work, but it's worth it. We now have a few accounts where we've got 100,000 followers where, you literally turn it on and you will get a sale. So if you're a business owner that's sat there going, God, I don't know where my sale's coming from, adopt that method, record a video every day, get on with it. I don't care how hard it is. in a year's time, you will thank this podcast and go, I'm really glad I listened to that, because now I can do a live, I can put a comment out, I will get an inquiry.
Yeah, I mean, I often say businesses sell products and services, but the reason someone chooses you is your brand.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of it, because so many, certainly in the small business sector, actually you're not really that unique from the fact of, you're talking about scaffolders, but there's loads of scaffolding companies.
Yeah.
Yes, there will be some slight USPs, but not enough that people really care. But actually, I want to buy into that brand. That's the reason people choose them.
Absolutely. And I think that if we looked at scaffolding, if we kept our scaffolding friends involved, like, that's the problem, right? Because actually, from their point of view, they just want to get out and do the job. They're not sitting there thinking about their Google reviews or their website pages or whatever along those lines. And that's, again, another reason when you get an agency involved, you need an agency that's actually just going to go, we'll run it for you. Forget it. Just do what we tell you to do. But there is a key component of that. You can build the brand, you can do it, but you do actually have to do what they ask and meet somewhere together to actually support them, because we can send all the ideas, as you said, the strategy can come, but if nothing gets sent into the agency, what you've still got is just a scaffolding company that hasn't got anything behind it. Pimlico Plumbers, great example. I can't say we've worked with them. Definitely have done a fair bit of work around them. The vans, the TV show, the way they position it, the fact that they wash their vans every day before they go out because it's part of their brand image. Now, I've remembered that from a show from 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was, that worked. Now, there's nothing to say a scaffolding company in the same vein couldn't follow that method. But yeah, it's tougher for sure. They will remember the owner always. But that's also another ambition, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of, washing your van every day, because it goes back to that saying, and I don't know who originally said it, but I've heard it multiple times, is that, how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's, that turning up in a nice clean van, yeah, especially when someone's coming into your house, you feel like, okay, I like that brand. That's the brand I want in. It makes a good first impression.
A really good example. I think this is a really important story to tell. And before we get into this, hello audience. I've got a very poorly dog, and I think she's about to come over for a cuddle. So if you see a dog, we'll cover that in a second. A really good example. So there are many digital agencies, right? So what puts us apart from others? We do a thing called social clinics. So we bring people into a cinema room in either our Portsmouth or our Guildford office. We give them popcorn. We have a big screen. We put up their business, and essentially we rip it to shreds. And then they go away. We have one rule: we will not sell. And then the following day, because we've told them honestly advice, normally they come back and go, we'd like to do something with you. How can we make this work? So for that, it works. One client in particular left the fire service many, many years ago to become an electrician. He wanted to have his own business, do his own thing. And he built a website and he started to get out there. And it worked. He was getting a few jobs, but it wasn't enough. And he said, how do I differentiate myself? What do I do? I said, well, what did you do again in the past? I was a fireman. Okay, cool. Is there any legal ramifications for doing? And I gave him an idea. And he said, well, no, not really. I said, cool, let's do that then and change it. And the idea was simple. If he went out and did an electrical job, he, at the end of every job, spec'd an extra 15 minutes to either test your existing fire alarms, telling them the story about where he came from, or he had some in the van that he'd fit free of charge. Now, if you're not getting goosebumps just from hearing that, like, there's an old lady somewhere who now has fire alarms that never had them before because she was lucky enough to pick him off of whatever job site it was. There's no way he won't get recommended just because of the approach. And it's got nothing to do with actually what he does. It had something to do with what he did before. And he could tell that story. And that just made it really easy for him to do.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and that's a fantastic, and that is what marketing is. It is the strategy behind all the actions. Just doing stuff. Things happen. You will get reviews. You'll get recommendations. Yeah, assuming you do a good job, you might get some PR. You might, but if you're doing that with a strategy behind it, that's marketing.
Yeah, and if you can repeatedly do it as well, I think is important. Yeah. I think if you just if we were talking about one fire alarm, that's just going to die very quickly. But I remember the text message where he texted. He said, I've just bought 200 more fire alarms. And it's just like, that's excellent. That's exactly what we need to do. That's exactly the model of what we've got to do going forward. And it worked for him. It worked really well. And there's loads of examples like that within business. You just have to think a little bit outside the box and come up with some cool ideas. And normally they're fun. They get the business owners engaged, and actually it helps them generate revenue. That is what they care about.
Yeah, it is that afters. What are we actually trying to do? And I think, as agencies, you have to not get caught up on too many vanity metrics. And what I mean by that is that obviously I don't mean that it's completely dismissive to say, your video's going viral and the number of hits, but equally, like you said, 1,000 views on a web page, great. Didn't actually generate, any income. So it's all right to produce reports, but you still got to be respectful to the clients, because the reason they're coming back to you and paying you is because they're getting a result, which is quite often money in the bank.
So we've got a new member of staff who joined us last week, and this morning we did a very quick catch up to make sure how you finding the role, what's happening. And this member of staff asked, how proactive do you want me to be? And I said, well, give me some examples, tell me what you mean. And they gave me some examples of the work they were looking at. And I said, that's brilliant. He said, well, do we want to tell them that? I said, absolutely. He said, but they don't pay us for that. I said, that's okay. I'd rather get a phone call from a client saying, your account manager is amazing. My God, everything they're doing is awesome, versus who's my account manager? And that sometimes, if you keep the idea on the sale, not necessarily the process of what you're trying to do, ultimately, they know you're looking after them. Now, there are bits where that's easier. So, scaffolding, unfortunately, SEO is a big part of that. It has to be. Whereas if you're a beer company, TikTok matters more, because you're going to get out there, you can showcase the product, you can do all that stuff. So there are different strategies. But if you keep an eye on the sale for the client, they will be able to pay your bills. That's kind of the model.
Yeah, and I guess you mentioned about, getting the phone call saying your account manager's brilliant and things like that. That's delivering two parts, because I think what's really key with working with clients is results and relationships.
And do you know, the relationship thing is probably the harder thing now, I think, to build long term. So we've just opened. We opened our second office about 1.5 years ago. And now what we're finding with two sets of clients all over the place, plus actually clients in Dubai and an international country as well. Relationship, oh my, it's so important. So we're definitely, I believe that you should see people. I believe you should go meet them. I still feel there's a place for that. Virtual, I think, is dying off a little bit, if I'm honest. I think people are kind of getting bored of the screen to the point. But they'll do it when they need to. The one that, and I think salespeople for days will talk about this when we say, pick up the phone, say hello. It's amazing the response you get just from, what are you calling me for? And it's just, I'm just checking in, how's sales? It's completely different. And if you build those relationships, they will stay with you. And at the very least, they'll think about leaving you more when they're presented with a challenge. So if they've got a strong relationship with you, but there's a challenge, like, I don't know, they've lost a contract and finance could be tight. If you're a friend, if you're more entwined with their business, they're more likely to want to work with you. More importantly, if they're in trouble, they'll reach out for help to see what you can do. And that's a good thing too.
Yeah, I mean, I love that story about the phone. It goes back to the, doing something a little bit different, because, you go back maybe 20 years ago, we all used to get, lots of posts, but, I'm excited, I've got an email. This is exciting. I'm not excited to get emails anymore. I get so many of them. But actually, get something through the post. This is exciting. And it's the same with the phone, because actually we have stopped doing it.
We have stopped doing it, but actually post is a really good example. So if I said to you, have you got envelopes with you right now in the office? You probably do. You've probably got some envelopes kicking around. Probably not many, but you've got a few for the odd occasion that you send something out. I bet they're not brightly coloured in gold to make it exciting when it lands. So again, this comes down to that really random thing of like, okay, the phone call, just drop them a message, whatever it is. The post, do something a bit different. So we, when we engage new clients, there's two things we do that are a little different, I think anyway. We send an actual letter out with my mobile number on to every client that says, look, if you've ever got a problem, here's my number, give me a call. Now, the physical post of that, we genuinely get text messages going, that was a nice touch, thank you. Now, it does cost a bit of money. Arguably, it's not environmentally friendly because it is postage. There's another side to that where I think we are keeping postal services in jobs. So there's an economy argument, which I think is important to stress. But it's actually a nice touch. And that letter isn't a bill. And that's really, really cool. That's, they've got something they actually want and they've bothered to take action. And it goes out in a really brightly coloured envelope. So they know it's different and they know it's something a bit more, exciting. I think the other danger, but positive thing that we do, but I know that other agencies do it, but I do think it's important. WhatsApp groups and the very first message being very, very clear to the client, we're here to help. So if you're out and about and you don't want to wait until you get an email, ping us, just send us a very quick, we're here, we can answer it, we carry these things with us. Just don't expect a response between X and X because the team don't work that time. That's the one danger of these. I'm sure all agency owners are having that problem.
Yeah, completely. I mean, yeah, there is that thing of we love to be able to communicate really easily, but equally it's trying to set some parameters in there because, I know that every agency, almost every creative industry often can suffer from can you just? And often those can you justs crop up actually at the most awkward time because someone's had a fault while heading home from work and it's, Friday at 6 p.m. You get to, can we look at this? And it's like, I've switched off, so there is always that balance. Talk to me about how the can you just, because it is a big issue in the creative industry.
The can you just, no is the answer. No, it's not. Right. So I think it's important to recognize that Delivered Social is a fairly highly reviewed business. So I think we've got 500-600 reviews now. We're doing something right. The reality is the can you just is probably what we're doing wrong, but it's building the other side of the business. So we've put parameters in with the team, and we've got rules that say, look, if you get an email at so-and-so, just don't do it. If you want email on your phone, that's fine, but you are not required to answer it. Don't do it, that type of thing. If you do, because could you just, and you're thinking, well, I could, so I'm going to because it's easy and it might get that guy a sale. Schedule your response for in hours time so the client doesn't get used to they've got immediate access all the time. Now, the reality is the team are people pleasers. And I think most agencies, they've got good people. They want to help businesses grow. But those can you justs, when they're going to bed at 11 p.m. at night, it's a bit like, well, no, I can't. And actually, it's been sensitive of you to ask. So I think there's a problem there. And I think that's a challenge where senior leadership really do have to kind of manage that with their clients. And I think, provided it is on that one occasion and it doesn't creep in all the time, fair enough. If it creeps in 3 or 4 times, the team have to be comfortable to say, look, I'm running into a problem with this client. Can you intervene? And I think you do have to intervene. You just have to send, a very quick WhatsApp going, hey, just so you know, our working hours are X and X. I know you've asked for a couple of things after hours. If I could ask you to plan ahead, that would be really helpful. With scope creep, with the can you just upload this picture? Can you just do this? Can you just do that? We atypically say yes. We have a thing called the common sense policy, which basically says, look, if you don't abuse us, we'll help you out. If you do, expect a bill. And actually, those are the words. That literally is what it says. And what we find is atypically, once we've got them into it and they understand it, they're normally okay with it. There are, as every agency will say, repeat offenders. There are those ones that keep doing it all the time. And I think sometimes you have to balance act it. And we have had to let go of clients and say, look, this isn't worth it. And you're not moving forward. Everyone wants to help everyone. I do think that's true.
Yeah.
But if the business isn't helping itself by planning and learning from what it got wrong that caused that scope creep in the first place, can you just, ultimately, how long can you keep working with them? Because it will just continue. I'd love to hear other agencies' views on that, because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? If you don't do it, ultimately the client sat there going, well, you're not being very helpful. Well, we are, but you haven't paid us to do it. And then if you do it, you build a rod for your own back. We did have an incident recently where a client left us and has gone to another agency. It happens. We all lose a client. It's good. We have had to tell this other agency 19 separate things they've needed to do that should be really basic, and copying in the previous client all the time. And at one point this morning, I almost emailed and gone, come on, guys, you're moving a website. Please tell me you know to change the admin emails. 19 days in a row, we're doing the same thing. Can you just do what... And that's actually a real problem, because actually they might be sat there going, well, no, we've not been instructed to do that. We've just been instructed to do this, and that's what we're being paid for. And it's really interesting. I'd love to hear what other agencies do with it, because I bet that would be an interesting pub talk, I tell you.
You know what? I think agencies have more in common than we think. And I've got this thing where, people talk about competition, and yes, we've all got to eat. I want to go out and win work and things like that. But actually, I know nearly all the local agencies to me. I know all the owners, and we sometimes do have conversations. And if ever a client leaves me and is going one to them, I will make it as seamless as possible. And I'd expect them to do the same, because it does happen. And what gets me sometimes is, I've almost turned down a client on that red flag of them moaning about what the other agency is doing. And I just sort of think, no, you were asking too many can you justs. That's where the relationship has broken down. And it is a tough one, because, again, you talk about people pleasing. My agency is set up to serve other people and give them great results. That is what I want to do.
And different sizes of agencies handle that differently. So, if I look back at the start of Delivered Social, and you look at you're winning your first 5 clients, we didn't care what you moaned about. We took you, we got you, we did it.
Yeah.
And actually, the smaller agencies now around us would be doing the same thing to us. But arguably, they will learn, as we had to. They'll learn in 5 years that actually it was not financially viable to take that hosting client on for £7 a month or whatever it was. So that is exactly what happens. Oddly, a very interesting page on our website is, we're sorry to see you're leaving. Here's some of our recommended people you should go to. So we actually directly signpost people to our competitors that we know are good. And we'll openly say, look, hey, if you're not getting on with us, because we are very, very, every agency has its quirk. I think that's, ultimately, you might be a better fit somewhere else, and that's okay. The goal is to drive your business, and if we're not able to do that for you for whatever reason, here are 8 other people that we know that if we hand them over to, they will look after you, and that's always worked really well, because actually, it makes them think when they're leaving, oh, that's a really nice touch, and then secondly, what we're also doing is fostering a decent community of decent professionals, and going, hey, we know Bill will be able to do that for you. Please go work with Bill, because we can't continue this way. And that one page, honestly, it does so many favors for us on the website. So anyone wants to add us to their client acquisition or leaving, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great tip, because building up that community of agency owners, of other people who deliver work, and even, like you say, whether you're a full stack agency or not, there will be either certain clients you're not the best at serving, because no one's the best at everything, but someone else might be a specialist. And actually, it's probably fairer to pass that client across, because if you want to please someone, then send them to someone who can please them.
And I think there's also times where the agency outgrows the client and the client outgrows the agency sometimes. And people do have to say goodbye. You lose clients. I mean, it does happen. And it's not always because you were bad at what you did, or you didn't deliver the results they expected. Or, and agencies will sit there and go, my clients' requests are unreasonable. They are. Mainly because they don't understand what they're actually asking you to do. They just think it's, can we spend £100 on Facebook and get 1 million followers? Yes, of course you can. Do you know what I mean? Sure, sign me up to that service. There are services out there that do that do not work. And I think, but that's what they see. That's what they're exposed to. So when you looked at I could learn to cook. I could go and read the good food guide for my lasagna, or I could see the guy for 60 seconds and do it quicker. They're experiencing the same stuff with us. They are experiencing that same content. They are experiencing that, here's your website loading in 3 seconds. Well, mine take 20, because you pay £1 a month for your hosting and it's shared with 4,000 other websites, sunshine. Get over it, or pay a normal bill. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think actually for all agency owners, asking better questions to clients, and, discovering what they're really asking for, and then being really honest that, yes, I could do that, but in my experience, that won't work, rather than just going, well, that's what the clients asked me to do. That's what they're paying me to do, and I'm going to do it, because actually there's no great outcome at the end of that.
So our question is always, what really pissed you off with the last agency? And just be honest about it. And that will tell you an awful lot about what they're going to be like with you. And normally, if you read between the lines, you can hear that they didn't get what they wanted and they felt they paid more than they should have done. Whereas actually, the other side of that coin, if you spoke to the agency, they'd probably say they didn't pay their bills and didn't actually send us any content through. We couldn't do anything. So you have to find that balance right. You have to get that balance right. Otherwise, it doesn't work. On the thing that you say, don't sell, I'll give you a really good example of something that we really struggle with is PPC. We can do it. We're technically capable. We can get you results. We can do all that. But if you come to an agency with £100 budget, I mean, Mr. Scaffolding Company, for example, it's just like, guys, it's going to last a day. And who do you think you're going up against? Where do you want that to work? But unfortunately, again, and Google's partly responsible for this with their £75 free voucher thing. Yeah. It's like you get results instantaneously with £75 or blow £75 learning how to screw up your keywords and then pay someone else. And I think that's true. And so it's twofold. People are experienced in this kind of, you can fix this really quickly. You can do this really quickly. But actually, it's not the reality. I've got one other one that I've got to say because I'm on my my war chest now. Wix. I built this website today. No, you didn't. On the TV ads. No, you didn't. A designer built it for you. That's why it looks like that. Yeah. And it only took me 10 minutes. No, it didn't. It took you 10 minutes to fill in the sign up form. Yeah. And I think that's another problem because again with web, you're sitting there going, okay, a website costs X. Well, Wix will do it for £10. No, Wix won't do it for £10. No. And that's another challenge. So, it's interesting when you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, we build lots of websites and very much, you see these beautiful templates, like you say, on Wix. And I'm like, yeah, but that's content created specifically for that template. It's all the right length. Their photos all match. Actually, the first thing we've got to do with you is actually get some brand imagery because actually your photos are terrible. So that site won't look like that. And I think that's the thing, people should be paying us for the understanding that we understand how to position that website for you. It's not simply a case of dropping in a few photos and some generic copy and suddenly you're going to have a brilliant website.
So we are a full stack agency to the point that we actually have a photographer as well. And the amounts of times we get the, can you just, and I want to finish that sentence. Can you just send me a member of staff that you're paying for to complete a free photo shoot for the website that we've discounted and really hustled on price on because we didn't want to pay more than the £10 for Wix. But can you just send me a photographer, please, that will edit all those pictures for me? Thanks very much. No. But that happens all the time. And kind of retrospectively, going back to the TikTok stuff, that is currently the new challenge with video. Because in order to get that content together, they need someone out there doing it with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when we see video, it looks very easy, but it's not.
I guess it's twofold. If you want it to be polished, of course it's not easy. You've got the work to do, right? I think the other thing, sometimes it's confidence. This is new. So if I looked at some of the TikToks we do as a team and some of the video we do as a team, it really is raw. Some of it is raw. And I'd argue that one works the best because people want to see my messy desk. They want to see, me boiling the kettle for the first thing in the morning, about to ruin my day. They want that genuinity. But they also need to know that you're a professional company with a polished brief. And so they want to get to know the people, but they also want to know your work's good. And that's an interesting band or way to flow.
Yeah, I did a video a little while ago that said, basically creating video content is easy, but creating video content you're happy with is hard. And what I went on to say is that actually I can literally pick up my phone that's here and film myself talking, but then I might go, oh, I know I shouldn't have worn this shirt, or I'm not happy with my hair, or the background's a bit messy. Okay, I'm not happy with it. And that's the hard. So it's not that it's hard to create from that perspective. It's hard to create and me be happy to post it.
And then if you've done the whole background thing, you've set yourself up at your home office or whatever it is, and then you say those words, I'm not happy with it, your confidence takes a knock. I'm not happy with how I look. I'm not happy with my hair. I'm not, my weight, whatever it be. And actually, you should just be proud that you gave it a go. Get it out there. Get it out there. You mentioned, content needs to be delivered to the right people at the right time. The content you might not be happy with might just hit the person that needs to see it at the moment they need to. So I'm not going to say don't worry. You want it to look good. Of course you do. But maybe give yourself a break. This is a whole brand new thing that people are getting used to right now. Don't over egg it.
No. We've had a fantastic conversation today. I mean, we've covered lots of the agency stuff. I want to just finish off just very quickly talking about two small things. So first of all, how you've built culture in your team, because you've said everyone is a good person, they want to work, but how have you installed that company culture in them?
Do you know, I don't know that I feel qualified to answer that, actually, because I think we're still learning that journey. We have a very open policy. So, our finance meetings, for example, the whole team are in, so they know what's going on. Now, that can be empowering. It can also be scary. I'm of the belief that if we give the information, people will normally do the best that they can with that information. I also think it's a great way to train our junior staff to actually understand what's going on within the business. Everyone sits there in agencies like, oh, and we do this, and we do this, and we do this. Every agency does it. We all do it. We've all got the Coke machine. We've all got the music playing. That all exists. What I think is starting to become true at the moment in our culture is this realization of how hard it actually is. So going to the can you just conversation, but in culture context, well, we're only posting a picture. How hard is it? Well, actually, it can be quite. And actually, maybe we're not giving each other credit enough for what we're actually responsible for when we post that scaffolded picture. That could be the next 50 grand contract, won or lost, depending who sees the typo on LinkedIn. So yeah, I think for us at the moment, we are in a state of change. COVID has hindered and enabled some of that. And I think that's a challenge, certainly with our junior staff. But I'd like to think us being open and approachable, like, for example, we don't have hidden desks in other offices that you can't walk into. We're there, we're available, we'll talk to anyone. We actively spend 40% of our day with another member of staff as a senior leadership team. I'm not saying that it doesn't help. It does help our culture because it makes them feel approachable. I don't know that we've nailed it yet. I wish we had. I am yet to see culture that I think has been nailed, because there's always if you're adaptable, it will help, but there's always a member of staff somewhere who it doesn't work for. So, for example, actually a really good example, a member of our web team, who when he watches this will know I'm talking about him, and that's okay because this is going to be blatantly obvious. He does not respond to any of the traditional other agency things that the team enjoy. So, for example, he doesn't drink. He doesn't want to go for a Friday drink after the pub. He goes and supports it. He wants to be a part of the team. He's great. He will take part. What he does do is he goes to the cinema 3 or 4 times a week. And he has worked his arse off recently. So we bought him an unlimited pass for a cinema ticket to say thank you, because he doesn't partake in the other things. Now, is that favoritism? No. Yes, maybe. But is it identifying that member of staff's quirk and what he's appreciated for is something different than maybe 40% or 50% of the rest of them? I think people talk about, the agency drink thing and whatnot. I might not want to do that and whatnot. Okay, cool. We can't help everyone, but maybe being a bit more specific works. So we're learning. We haven't got it right, but we're trying hard.
That's a fantastic answer, because I often do think it is a journey. You are constantly learning and the world is constantly changing. Just to finish off today then, what advice would you give to someone thinking of starting agency? And I know right at the beginning you said go back to bed and don't do it, but they've committed to do it. What do you think is the biggest learning you've had that they either need to avoid or they need to implement earlier?
I'll give you 3 tips that I think are relevant. Number 1, get yourself involved with the agency community in your areas. They are after your business. You're after theirs. Have a drink, get over that, and then recognize that you've got there's a great buddy system usually. They're normally pretty good. Number 2, don't lose sight of finance. Like, it is so important that you're on top of your finances. You mentioned, everyone's called you do too as a new owner, but just expect that you're going to have a rough year for a first year. And number 3, truthfully, really figure out what your offering is and really deliver it. Don't lose focus on your sales. Make sure that your offering is out there constantly. You're talking about it constantly, and don't just change because someone says, "Oh, I think you should have this." Don't try and get an offering right and stick to it for a while to learn the data about what people really, really like behind it. Otherwise, you'll flip-flop too often.
John, thank you so much. Your insight has been fantastic today. You clearly know your stuff, and it's lovely to talk to a fellow agency owner. And yeah, I feel we've been able to bounce those ideas off. So personally, I've got lots from it as well, and I'm sure everyone listening has.
Cheers, Matt. Well. Now, just before we go, does anyone want the snoring dog noise on the microphone? Because if you can hear it. Right, everyone, meet Delenn.
Bring the dung.
There you go. Say hi, Delenn. Delenn has been with us for all of 3 weeks. She needs a job title, and she's one of 2. So we have another one called Dembe, and she needs a job title, guys. So Dembe is our Chief Marketing Officer. So anyone on the podcast, if you can come up with a job title for Delenn, she just needs to outrank her husband, boyfriend, sister, brother problem relationship that we've got at the moment. But there we go. Matt, an absolute pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers. See you soon. Bye now.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.